Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Stern coming at you with a little bit of a different video. I came home just a little while ago from attending and assisting with one of the caucuses here in my city, and it happened to be at my mosque, which is called a satellite location. So you did not have to be a resident of the particular neighborhood, just a member of the Muslim community. And we were able to have a caucus at the mosque. But what I'm going to do is, for those that have never seen how the caucus process works when it comes to choosing a nominee for president, this is a simplified version of how it goes. But I just got my laundry quarters, and each one of these is going to represent an attendee, and all these push pins here that you see that I stuck onto this box, they represent candidates. So the way it works, after the first part, after registration and voter eligibility is verified, then what people do is go into the central room. If it's a huge caucus, then they may split, then a candidate's group may go into a separate room, or a partition may be pulled to divide off the larger space, but we just use corners of our prayer room because that was sufficient. So basically what the first thing that happens, at least here in Iowa, for Democratic and Republican caucuses, if there are multiple candidates wanting to seek the office. So I'll use the Democratic caucus since there are still quite a few candidates, and those who oppose Trump, some states have canceled their Republican contests altogether. So that's why I'm choosing to follow the Democratic model, because there's so many candidates still in it. But so what I'm going to do is basically go through the process, and I'll be moving these quarters around. Oops, sorry about that. So as I said, each of these push pins represents a candidate that is seeking the Democratic nomination. So after the caucus chair has been decided, and the secretary who takes the count of how many people go into each group, and say for my location, the candidate had up to, the candidates group had up to 9 delegates, and these delegates are people who will go to the party convention first at the local county level, then just on up to state, and then the national convention later on in the year. And that's where the party platform, it would be the same for the Republican Party. Delegates are chosen, and they move on from there to work on the platform and stuff like that. Platform meaning the issues that the party will promote at the conventions at the various levels. But anyway, after the caucus officers are chosen, then people could speak for a particular candidate. For instance, someone would speak up for Bernie Sanders and say why he should be the next president. And then another person may speak up for Elizabeth Warren and why she should be president, and so on, until you go through all of the candidates, if there was someone who wants to speak for that candidate. And usually just one person does it. And then the alignment, the first of two alignments is called. basically what the alignment is, people will move to the section of the space where the captain of the volunteers for that particular candidate would stand in a particular location, say, I'll use this blue one to represent Bernie Sanders. So what people would do, those who support Bernie Sanders would move over there to that portion of the space, and then say those who want to support Joe Biden, and I'll use this yellow one to represent Joe Biden, would move over here. I'm just picking numbers at random, off the stack, so I'm not. And then say Elizabeth Warren, and I'll use this purple one here. So those who support Elizabeth Warren may come over here, and those who support Pete Buttigieg, and this green one here will represent him. And then those who support Amy Klobuchar, and I'll use this red one to represent her. And then Andrew Yang, I'm not using Bloomberg in this one because he's just trying to buy his way in. But anyway, I'm just using this 6 for simplification. And those who would support Andrew Yang would go here to his section. And then those numbers are counted. So basically counting heads. And then in order to be what's called a viable group, you have to, out of all of the attendees, you have to have a certain number in order to be what's called viable. 15% of the attendees have to support one candidate to be viable. And then, see, I have some here that I did not move. Undecided. They can remain undecided until the second alignment if they want, or they can go to whichever one. But say most of the attendees, but not yet 15% of the total number, say, are supporting Bernie Sanders. So I have most of the larger pile of quarters here. But in order to be viable, in the second alignment, others would move. So for instance, I'll take some of these, move these over here, and say 2 may want to go over here. And if not too many, people will continue to move around. And if all of them, if people who originally supported some of the candidates move to other groups, then they're basically out for that particular precinct or location. Now, it can be different at each precinct, each location, but for purposes of this demonstration, I pulled these 2 out. And then if after the second alignment, and there are only 2 alignments, the one that has the most, at least still has to have 15% of the total, wins that particular precinct or location. So The others who have less than 15% of the total would not be viable, and they're basically out. But if they have at least 15%, then the top 3 for that precinct, but all numbers for all candidates are reported to the state party. So what's new for this year is the total for attendees, the total number of people supporting each candidate in the first alignment, and then the second alignment. Those numbers are also reported. But the winner for that particular location would still be the one that still has the most supporters. And the rest would just be on down. So this is pretty much a simplified version of how it works. Then after the second alignment and everyone has been counted for each alignment, if you do not want to participate in the delegate selection, then you can leave. And some would choose to stay, but that's just preparation for the party conventions to come later on in the year. So the way I'm showing it here, Bernie Sanders would be the winner, and then I have this one as Elizabeth Warren, and I have this one as Andrew Yang. And so the way I got these stacked, this one here, say Joe Biden might not make the cut for that particular location. But I hope this helps to understand the caucus process, at least here in Iowa. It may be different in other states that do caucuses instead of a primary, where people can just go pick any time of the day to vote within the voting hours, whereas the caucuses start at 7 o'clock local time, at least here in Iowa, so 7 o'clock Central. And it could take, depending on how many attendees, how many candidates are being represented, how long it takes to move through the alignments and count the people in each group, the 2 different times. It could take up to 2 hours, and longer for people who stay and do the delegate selection and stuff like that. So it may be different in other states that do caucuses, but this is basically how it's done here in Iowa. And I'm not showing how it was exactly at my location, but I've just picked at random how I wanted to do this, just to give you an idea of how it works. So just thought I'd throw this out there, and for anyone who may be interested in how a caucus could work, and just something a little different. So thanks for watching, and catch you on the flip side.